I filmed this entire video yesterday, and here's how it went.
The series came out on January 1st. On my live stream that day, I mentioned something about that being the day the series was coming out.
Got a couple different mic setups today, so here's hoping it doesn't happen again. I was really excited when I found out about the Stanford Twin Study, and I was even more excited when I found out that Netflix was coming out with a 4-part docuseries about it. Of course, as with any documentary that shows veganism in a positive light, I had a feeling this one might be met with some criticism, and I was right. There has been plenty of critique, mostly in the vein of the series being biased and blatant vegan propaganda. After watching all 4 parts, I do have some thoughts of my own on the criticism and whether I think it was warranted, so let's get into it. I am really going to try to have this video be structured, but it is a bit difficult because the series itself was pretty unstructured, which is something we'll talk more about later. Basically, we're going to do a quick overview of the study, a quick overview of the series, what I expected based on things I had heard, my general thoughts, both positive and negative, my biggest critique of the series, talk about some reactions I've seen online, things I felt were missed opportunities, and then my final thoughts. I want to clarify, in this video, I'm not going to go too in depth about the study itself and whether I think it's scientifically sound, simply because I'm not qualified to do that. I think there's other YouTube channels that could do a really good job of that and probably have done that. This video is more going to be me examining the series as a piece of media and its efficacy in achieving what I believe it set out to achieve. If you watched my most recent Good Vegan News video, you will have seen me talk about the Stanford Twin Study. It was an 8-week study that was done at Stanford Medicine following 22 sets of twins, in which one twin was assigned a vegan diet and the other twin was assigned an omnivore diet. The study found that the vegan diet was healthier in a few different ways, including that it lowered bad cholesterol and fasting insulin, resulted in more weight loss, and also lowered participants' biological age more than the omnivore diet. The docuseries on Netflix was produced by the Oceanic Preservation Society, which is a team of artists and activists who expose environmental issues and promote advocacy via film and media. They also produced The Cove, which won the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature Film in 2010, and also Racing Extinction and The Game Changers. Luis Hoyos is the executive director of the Oceanic Preservation Society. He has directed all of their films and this series. And the series follows 4 sets of twins who were participants in the study. What I was expecting based on things I had heard. Firstly, like I said, I was really excited when I found out the study had been turned into a series. I actually found out about it from a post on Miyoko Shinner's Instagram. I was pretty surprised to see that Miyoko was in it, representing Miyoko's, and we will talk more about that later. The series came out January 1st, and on my live stream that day, a couple of people in the live stream had actually watched it already, which I was surprised by because it had just come out that day, but some people were in different countries and were hours ahead. When I asked these people what they thought, a few of the comments were that it was a lot of repeated information that they already knew, that some of the twins' reactions to possibly going vegan were cringy, and also that they wish it had shown more of the twins and the study. This comment alarmed me because I was like, what do you mean you wish it showed more of the twins in the study? Wasn't the entire thing about the twins in the study? That's what I went into it with, so let's get into my general thoughts on it after watching. Starting with the positive, firstly, the premise of the series is very interesting, mainly because the study that it's based on is very interesting. I also liked the 4 sets of twins that they chose to follow. I thought that they were really fun to watch. I actually found them to be, for the most part, pretty open-minded about the whole vegan diet aspect. Sure, there were a few comments here and there, but overall I was pretty surprised at how excited some of them seemed to possibly get assigned the vegan diet. And I said to Paul, I can see why people would be excited about getting assigned the vegan diet, because for anyone who was even remotely curious about trying a plant-based diet, this would be kind of the ideal circumstance in which to do it, where all your numbers are being checked regularly, you're under the supervision of experts, you have all your meals provided to you, you have a ton of support. I also learned a few new things from the series. My favorite thing I learned was learning about the Berkeley Alt Meat Lab, which is a course at Berkeley dedicated to innovating and creating alternatives to animal products. Something else I found interesting, neither positive nor negative, was that Miyoko Shinner was in the series quite a bit, talking about cheese and the dairy industry at large, but also representing Miyoko's. These parts with Miyoko really kind of time-stamped just how long ago this was filmed, because for her to be in the series proudly representing Miyoko's, it had to have been in the first half of 2022. In my Miyoko's video from last year, I tried to decipher whether or not Miyoko would want us to continue buying Miyoko's products, and I just found it interesting that she allowed herself to still be in the series. Maybe she didn't have a choice in the matter once the scenes were filmed, but like I said, she also promoted it on her Instagram, which I'm not sure she had to do. So I just thought it was interesting to see that, and of course a little sad too. Now let's move on to my critiques. Like most docuseries these days, did it need to be 4 parts? No, it absolutely did not. In my opinion, it could have just been a standalone documentary like Game Changers. Maybe Netflix wanted them to do a multiple part series based on the success of the Game Changers, but a side effect of this bloatedness is that it was all over the place. It jumped around a ton in a way that felt very interruptive to me. It felt very disorganized, and there was also a lot of redundancy. There were multiple scenes throughout the series where I felt like I was having deja vu and like I had already seen that exact same scene. For example, there's 2 separate scenes where the South African twins, Pam and Wendy, go to a South African specialty food store. I swear when I saw the second scene, I thought I was seeing the exact same scene again. And I think part of that is that neither scene really served to accomplish anything other than establishing that in South African culture there's a lot of meat, something that had already been established multiple times before. They also repeated things in later episodes that we had already learned in earlier episodes, like explaining what visceral fat is or how the testing works for the sexual arousal tests. Because this is a streaming series, the assumption should be that everyone's watched every episode. Also, many of the talking head interviews and tangential parts felt like they could have been copied and pasted from the Game Changers. It was a lot of the same information I've seen before. These are some smaller things, but things that bothered me nonetheless. As someone who's very squeamish, I do not need to see close-ups of blood getting drawn. In fact, I resent being shown them. I don't need to see a close-up of the needle going into a vein and then blood going through the tube. It makes me want to throw up just talking about it. I also hate in documentaries ultra close-ups of the talking head parts, and they did that a few times in this. I think they're doing it to really try to emphasize what the person is saying, but to me, it ends up just feeling jarring and distracting. Speaking of jarring, they also had these moments where they were clearly trying to jar or shock the audience. For example, when they were talking about deforestation in the Amazon, and they had this close-up of a chainsaw, like really loud, of the chainsaw buzzing and like going through the tree. It seemed like they were trying to make it feel very visceral and jarring to make a point, but it just ended up annoying me. I think we all understand that deforestation of the rainforest is bad. I don't need to be constantly adjusting my TV volume to get it. All these things I just mentioned were general things, but now let's get into my biggest critique of the series, which is that, as the commenter in my live stream said, there was way too little of the twins in the study and way too much other stuff. And what is that other stuff? Literally everything from the environmental impact of animal agriculture to talking heads with everyone from Miyoko to Eric Adams to Daniel Hum to the Alt Meat Lab to the community gardens in Detroit to many, many other things. I'm not saying these things weren't all interesting and worthwhile topics, but I am saying I don't know that they all needed to be included in this series. While watching, there were multiple times when Paul or I said out loud, please get back to the twins. For a docu-series about a scientific study of twins, it really didn't show that many specifics about the study. They did show a lot of them getting tests done and explaining what tests they were having done, but I was more curious about the day-to-day of the study and what that looked like. And I think there were a lot of missed opportunities with that, which is something I'll get into in a little bit. I actually did a minute-by-minute breakdown of the episodes and how much time was spent on the twin study versus how much was spent on other stuff. Episode 1 was 40 minutes and 18 seconds. The amount of time that it spent either showing the twins on the screen or talking about the study was 31 minutes and 21 seconds, and the amount of time spent talking about other stuff was 8 minutes and 35 seconds. So not too bad for episode 1. Then we get into episode 2, which was 41 minutes. The amount of time spent on the twins or study was 19 minutes and 10 seconds. The amount of time spent on other stuff was 21 minutes and 50 seconds. So more time in episode 2 spent talking about other stuff than on the twins or the study. Episode 3 was 46 minutes and 5 seconds. The amount of time spent talking about the twins or the study was 17 minutes and 22 seconds. The amount of time spent on other stuff was 28 minutes and 43 seconds. So quite a significant difference in this episode, with more time being spent talking about other stuff than the twins or the study. Episode 4 was 56 minutes and 11 seconds. Amount of time spent talking about the twins or the study was 28 minutes and 45 seconds. Amount of time spent on other stuff was 27 minutes and 26 seconds. The total running time of all 4 episodes was 3 hours and 3 minutes. The total time showing the twins or talking about the study was 1 hour and 36 minutes. The total time talking about other stuff was 1 hour and 26 minutes. When I said earlier that this could have been just one documentary, there's the proof. I also want to say that many of the parts where the twins were on screen, so minutes that I counted toward the twin or study part of my counter, had nothing to do with the study. For example, there's a scene with Carolyn and Rosalind doing a raw chicken E. coli test to show that raw chicken is often contaminated. There's Pam and Wendy going to the South African store multiple times. There's John and Javon visiting the community gardens in Detroit. There's Michael and Charlie hanging out with Miyoko, etc., etc. They sort of shoehorned the twins into other scenes that had nothing to do with the study itself, but more to do with the overall story the filmmakers wanted to tell. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, sometimes it was interesting to watch. I'm just pointing out that my time codes were very generous in that way. And even then, there's not that much more time dedicated to the twins and the study than to the other stuff. Overall, many of the reactions I've seen on Twitter accuse the series of having a clear plant-based agenda that overshadows the scientific content. Obviously, we take these with a grain of salt, 1, because it's Twitter, and 2, because it's a series which ultimately promotes plant-based eating, 2 circumstances where we can usually expect to see negativity. But there do seem to be these flags that when people see, they automatically go, oh, this is vegan propaganda. And I want to talk about what some of those are because I think it's kind of interesting. Apparently, using the phrase bad cholesterol is one, which I really don't understand. I asked for clarification on this. I didn't receive a response. It seems like every major medical institution refers to LDL as quote-unquote bad cholesterol. Another flag is showing animal agriculture in a negative light, especially when it doesn't directly relate to the topic at hand. Another one is seeing the usual suspect vegan talking heads like Dr. Michael Greger. And another one is having any vegan activists or vegan business owners present. Of course, one can say these are just people who are never going to be open-minded when it comes to anything having to do with veganism. But I think what the reactions I've seen are pinging on is, you know, we signed up to watch one thing based on the title and the description, and then what we actually saw was another thing. I think this leads to people feeling tricked, feeling like an agenda is being pushed on them, and most people don't like to feel that way. They almost take it as an insult to their intelligence. It's like a mom trying to sneak veggies into the mac and cheese or something. It's like, did you really think I wasn't gonna notice that? Even if it is good for me, I don't want to be tricked. The premise of this series being about the twin study was amazing, but it's almost as though the filmmakers didn't trust that that alone was enough to be compelling. It seems like they used the intrigue of the topic to get people to watch, but then were like, now that we have you here, we're just going to show you what we want to show you. I want to make sure I say the other topics included, of course, relate to vegan diets in a larger or more general sense. I think most of us vegans feel very strongly that all of these things are connected and they're all important to talk about, but those of us who are already vegan weren't the target audience here. The actual twin study was 100% about health, and I think the filmmakers keeping it health focused would have been in their best interest. Given all of the extra stuff that was added, it's surprising to think that there were also missed opportunities, but in my opinion, there were. As I mentioned before, in the parts where they were showing the twins, they weren't showing me what I wanted to see. I was shocked that they never showed any one of the twins unboxing all their meals, showing what they got, other than a couple shots of them pulling 1 or 2 meals out of the box. Especially the vegan twins. I assume many people watching the show were curious about what they actually got to eat. Like, what did the meals look like? It was really a missed opportunity to show the audience what a week of healthy plant-based eating looks like. Similarly, when it got to the part where they were shopping for and cooking their own meals, there would be vlog footage of them at the grocery store, but they never showed us what they bought. How about a grocery haul? How about some sample recipes for the week? One of the most frustrating parts was where it showed one of the twins at the store with her friend, and she said, "I've got my friend here with me and she's going to help me put together my vegan pantry." But then they never showed what she got for her vegan pantry. Wouldn't that have been a great time to cut to a scene with the nutritionist, who we never saw by the way, and be like, here's how you build a vegan pantry. Here's a few staple items to get you started. This series was missing these actionable things for the plant curious people who were watching. Another thing is that they show them going to their workouts, but they never really talked about what the workout plan was. I wish there had been a sit down scene with the trainers where they went over their workout routine and schedules. As a detail-oriented person, it was so frustrating not to get to see all these little details I was curious about. Again, if the goal or agenda of this series was to steer people toward plant-based eating, which I think it was, all these little things I just mentioned could have facilitated that without feeling like agenda pushing. In some ways, I wonder if I just wasn't the target audience for this series. I don't think it was meant for vegans, but it certainly wasn't meant for people who are already highly skeptical of veganism and ready to discount anything that remotely resembles agenda pushing. But maybe there is this middle group of people who are open-minded to new information and curious about, but not already educated on the topics at hand. I have seen some people online saying they found it to be really eye-opening. It was in the top 3 on Netflix in its first week. It has slipped to number 5 this week, but it's still in the top 10. Obviously, a lot of people are watching it. And I had to share this anecdote with you. Given all the critique I had for the series, I wanted to share something really positive, which just happened the other day. Paul and I were at our local health food store, and I saw a woman at the dairy case, and she was looking at the Miyoko's pizza mozzarella. Then when we were checking out, she was checking out ahead of us, and the cashier was asking her about the product, and she was telling the cashier, she's like, yeah, it's cashew based and it's meant for pizza because it's liquid, so it makes it easier to melt. I've never tried it before, but I'm excited. And then she was like, I found out about it in a documentary and I'm gonna do vegan again. I've done it before, but I'm going back to it now. And then I chimed in because I couldn't help myself. And I was like, oh, we love that product. It's so good. I think you'll really like it. And then the woman asked me if I had a good recommendation for a coffee creamer, because she said the last time she was vegan, that was something she couldn't find a good alternative to. It was a really nice interaction, but my point in bringing it up is that the woman had obviously watched this series. I don't know of any other documentaries that feature Miyoko's liquid pizza mozzarella, unless she watched Totally Forkable's review of it, which maybe she did. But I think she was referring to this one. So not only did it encourage her to try a new vegan product, but it encouraged her to go back to a vegan diet, which she had apparently tried before. It hadn't worked out. And I don't know, I think that's like a real life success story of this documentary having an effect on someone that I just happened to stumble into. Although there were things that I thought could have been done better, it is clearly having a positive impact on some people. To sum it all up for me, there was not enough of what I wanted to see too much of what I didn't want to see. Lots of interesting threads, but it didn't quite nail bringing them all together. And honestly, any one of the tangents they went on could have been their own fascinating standalone documentary. Miyoko testing and releasing new products, the North Carolina hog farm crisis, Daniel Hum in 11 Madison Park, the chicken farmer transitioning to mushroom farming, the Berkeley alt meat lab, etc., etc., etc. But like I said before, I don't know that they all needed to be in the docuseries about the Stanford Twin Study. There is this instinct and this almost expectation as vegans to automatically endorse anything that's in support of our cause, whether that's a piece of vegan media or a vegan product or a vegan restaurant. But I believe it's important to be discerning about what we find to be effective and also point out in a constructive way when and why we find something to be ineffective, so that we can ultimately get better at creating things that will affect positive change. I'm really curious to hear what you guys thought if you watched it. Was it all that you were hoping it would be, or did you agree with some of my critiques? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more of my videos. Hit the bell to be notified when I upload, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!